for me, it's like also like a path of discovery. So each time I'm getting deeper into it, I discover new ways of like how things are connected.
Welcome, dear listeners, to Supernormalized, the podcast where we dive into the depths of the supernatural and explore alternative lifestyles, magic, UFOs, aliens, fairies, and a whole lot more. I'm your host, Cee Jay Barnaby, and today we have a very special guest joining us, Adrian Mornay, the visionary founder of Ecstatic Dance. Ecstatic Dance is not just a form of movement, but a profound practice that informs and transforms lives. It all began November 2013 right here in Brisbane, on the cafe deck at Northey Street markets. Adrian and his team initiated this incredible journey by hosting free outdoor dance events, spreading joy and wisdom that had already changed their own lives. At its core, ecstatic dance is a conscious movement practice that invites individuals to escape the confines of their minds and surrender to the wisdom of their bodies. Through dance, music, and on special occasions, with the addition of the sacred medicine of Cacao, these ceremonies become a catalyst for ecstatic states of being where the limitations of our conscious minds dissolve, opening the doors to the vast intelligence of our subconscious. In these gatherings, participants connect deeply with themselves and others in ways that words simply cannot express. It's an opportunity to embrace freedom, joy, and honesty, allowing us to meet ourselves as we truly are and creating a space where we can see beyond the limited identities we often cling to. Ecstatic dance is a journey of self-awareness where deep emotions are released, intuitive awareness expands, and actions align with intentions. Today, we are fortunate to have Adrian Mornay, the founder of this transformative movement, here on Supernormalized, and Adrian will share with us his profound insights, experiences, and the magic that surrounds ecstatic dance. Let's welcome Adrian Mornay to the show. Welcome to Supernormalized. On today's episode, we have Adrian Mornay, who's the founder of Ecstatic Dance. Now, Adrian has been doing ecstatic dance since 2013, where he started it in a market in Northey Street in Brisbane, Australia. And it's evolved from there and has been running ever since. So it's now nearly over 10 years that this has been going on. So welcome to the show, Adrian.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me. It's been really exciting to just see you again. So
it's good to see you too, bro. So maybe we should start off like, who are you, Adrian? Tell us about you and what made you go in this sort of direction in life to be able to form a dance movement that is ecstatic dance.
Oh, well, it's a very kind of unlikely, probably like from my profession, because I'm an engineer. So I graduated engineering in Europe in '97. I was working, it was general engineering with a minor in interior design and architecture. And this was like a field that you probably wouldn't say that it's necessarily connected to music or dance or anything like this. But since I was like in the uni, I got a sense of like, I was pretty much playing music for friends, having like small gatherings. This was really after '92, like after I finished high school, I got into a yoga movement. It was one of the biggest yoga movements in Europe. Around 2000, it was around 35,000 members. And it was right after communism. So everybody was looking for something. And during communism, all these things were forbidden. So it was like you could actually risk arrest and prison and this and the same. Yeah.
Was this in Romania?
Yeah, in Romania.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, because no one knows that.
Yeah, so it was so until 1989 we had communism. So it was a totalitarian regime, and they could actually dictate whatever people were doing. And uh, it was interesting to live in that environment. For me, it was not as uh, let's say restrictive as a kid because I was still 14 when the change happened. We had everything. We didn't miss anything, but the adults would for sure feel that oppression. And one of the things was this thing that you could not practice something that was not vetted by the system. And the teacher that we learned from, he was actually arrested and he did prison time
For doing yoga.
for doing yoga. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
mental.
and even transcendental meditation. So Ramana Maharish's transcendental meditation, they came to Romania, and lots of the intellectuals, people that were just really passionate to find out about this thing, they started going there, and then all of a sudden, the communist regime changed their mind and they forbid it, and a couple of them ended up, yeah, not doing prison time, but they were questioned uh, for about what was going on, and so they didn't like anything that they didn't understand. That was
Yeah. Well, it's probably anything they thought that might become a threat to their power or their structure. So yeah,
yeah.
I get that as a as a state paranoid individual that as an individual it probably would do that. That's pretty awful, and I really can't imagine what that's like, except for maybe what we've experienced the last few years. But so okay, so that was the genesis for you. You started playing music for your friends. What style of music was it then? And how many people were you getting to your events?
It was just our friends. It was probably like 10, 20 people who were gathering in a place where we had a hall from one of my friends' father had like he was working, and that's where we were gathering usually to like do computer time because nobody had computers at home. It was still a new thing, and he happened to have like one of these big halls, and my passion was always music, and I had really big speakers. Big at the time, it was 100-watt speakers, and I was just getting them there, and I started to make those sets on my first Windows 95 computer.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so that and I really enjoyed it. It was always there was no alcohol involved. We were at yoga, so at that yoga course nobody would drink alcohol.
Mm,
We were all vegetarian.
mhm.
Um, it was kind of yeah, and it was an extension of our practice. I found it being able to, with the music and the dance, to get into a deeper state of trance than what you do with just regular postures.
So this was more like a discovery for you and the group that just happened and evolved organically over time.
Yeah, yes, it was. When we were going to yoga camps, I think we were going to different, yeah, um, disco clubs and these kind of things, and we would have like a state of elation just by being in a group and dancing together, and then. But the music was, of course, you couldn't really filter, the music that I was playing there, and I just was selecting music that had more of an uplifting vibe to it. Didn't have like cuss words and like all the things that can impact the subconscious in that state.
Mm. Oh, that's excellent that you were conscious of that at the time and
Yeah.
selectively found music which would be uplifting.
Mhm.
And I guess over time that you have been doing this, you've gone along and found more and more music and more music styles as also that style of music also has become more popular. So that must make it a lot easier for you.
Yeah. It's like I have like 20 something years of collecting that kind of music. So
Do you ever go back to your old tracks and play those as well?
yeah, probably not the ones right in the 90s, but yeah, 2000s, yeah, definitely. There was a lot of good music that came around that time.
Mm. And okay, so this is the idea of ecstatic dance. Now, did that actually evolve as you learned more about the benefits of dance, and what are those benefits?
Well, as I said, like for me as an engineer, I'm spending most of my day sitting in front of a computer and like talking to people, but it's not as physical. Like, and that takes a toll on the body on in time, and not only physically but also emotionally. It's a very limited range of emotions that you kind of get to experience in this kind of jobs, and during the time when I left Romania in '99 and I moved to the States. For about 8 years, we lived in Chicago, and that was again one of those environments that was not much alternative to the mainstream. Everything was very set into its tracks, and I kind of lost contact with these things with dance and music, and I felt it. I felt the disheartening. I felt that state of kind of really losing aliveness,
Mm,
and I didn't really kind of. I was too engrossed into that reality to realize what was missing, and
yes.
it went through a couple of moves, like because I didn't know what was going on. I said maybe it's just this being in the United States, because everything it's all commercialized, everything it's so like stereotyped, like all the cities would look the same, everybody was doing the same thing, going to the malls, and like all that commercialization of life. I felt that was the reason, and we moved back to Europe. We said, I'm going to just go back and you know start some connect with the community that I left there, and do the things that I studied, because in Chicago I studied. I went from general engineering that I was doing. I went into networking, and I studied to become just inter-network engineer, and that specialty, it was like that kind of school was not at that time in Europe, and I was okay. I'm going to go back and open a school and do the things that I used to do, but yeah, the reality changed in a different way there. It was like lots of things became also more commercial, like
Yeah,
as
right.
not things that I remember. That was the thing that was frozen in my mind. So we ended up coming back to the States, and I started working for an aerospace company doing the same internetwork projects. It's one of the biggest company that's that air to ground communications for all
Mm,
the commercial airplanes, and also projects for public safety. So that's what I was involved in, doing these projects that were critical communications for situations like natural disasters, like Hurricane Katrina and wildfires in California, and this when everything is destroyed, and we had to deploy a system that was able to bridge all the public safety agencies together. So it was a really interesting professionally to participate in that, and that allowed me to travel a lot. So I
mm.
traveled every week. I was going to a different place, and I went to California. And a friend of mine says, "Oh, if you are there in North California, just go to this place it's a retreat center. It's called Harbin Hot Springs." And
And you went to Harbin.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I went there, and there I had the surprise to see a free form dance. It was called the unconditional dance.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, and that when I just went to that dance, I everything that I did for in all those years when I was a student in uni with my friends in Romania, they all came back. Like all that joy of like being completely embodied, feeling that exhilarating feeling
Mm,
in me, and I realized, wow, that's what it was missing. It was just it doesn't matter where you are, but like how you what you do, and it really what's bringing that aliveness again.
mm. So it
So
was like an escape for you from regular life, but also a liberation of the soul and the spirit and the body.
yeah, it was more of a balancing thing, like just
Oh,
bringing the body back in balance. It was still integrated with everything that I did, but it was missing something. I mean, all the things that I did for work, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. It's like just seeing technology transform, and from the '90s, the technology went through a full-on revolution, and what we have now, it's sky high compared to what it was there. And I was always excited because there was always something new to learn, and I loved it. But it was this part, the body, you cannot detach it from what the mind enjoys. It's like the body still, it's this thing that needs to have expression of what's going on, of avenue of expression, and to get that not only physical activity but that emotional combined with activity, with the emotional, that gives you, brings that aliveness back. So I
Mm, wow, cool. Okay. So rediscovering this at Harbin, what did it trigger in you? Did you think, well, I could grow from here and make something, or what happened there?
well, I went once, and then I was like, came back to Monica, and I said, "You have to see this." I said, "This is something amazing. It's a place, and it's like all the things that we used to do back in the '90s, and because we are together since '97, so that was the time when she saw all these things, and she knew my friends and all the things that we were doing." And sure enough, I because not for work now, I just got her to come, and we both went to Harbin in all the vacations we had for, and this was like 2008, 2009. We took all the breaks that we could, and extended with long weekends, everything, and we're going to California and spending the time there.
Mm.
And for her, it was the same thing. Like, and this was, I think, what made it really work, because we were both in the same thing, and she had the same kind of reaction to it that I had. So both we could connect into that and says, yes, this is something we really want more into our lives.
So that was another birth of your ecstatic dance movement in another way then.
Yeah, I didn't at the time. It was still when I discovered it. I didn't really think of facilitating. It was just I enjoyed doing it, and
Mm,
I said I want to be in an area where this thing is happening.
mm,
And as a result, we actually decided to move, and we moved in 2010.
yes.
We got pretty much. I quit my job at that company in Maryland, on East Coast, and we packed everything in the car and we moved to California.
Uh-huh.
And we said, I want to be in that atmosphere. And of course, California, it's a really amazing place culturally, and it's a very, it was a breeding ground for new things. I mean, from like all the things, that all the big trends that happen in the States kind of like initiate kind of there, because they have that openness and this, and then kind of spreads everywhere. And
Mm.
technologically, art, everything, it's kind of happening there. And we were um, lucky to be part of, to be able to be part of that.
Mm, mm. And then so you're in California for a while, and living and enjoying, the lifestyle there, and also doing some ecstatic dance, but you weren't actually facilitating it yourself. When did that actually really start for you?
Uh, I started a course, so it was it was a facilitator that was coming to Harbin Hot Spring. Her name is Samantha Sweetwater, and she was doing a flavor of this conscious dance called Dancing Freedom. And Dancing Freedom, it's a way to kind of mitigate, kind of be in the middle between like traditional practices, the Native American practices, and what it's happening on a regular dance floor. And she had her teachers were people that were involved in the native traditional practices, like the pipe ceremonies, sweat lodges, and um, we were actually on the land where we could actually go and have sweat lodges with the Lakotas themselves, and have those all those ceremonies to witness how they are done by the original people that they were doing that. And I really enjoyed that because I could see the connection between those traditions and the traditions back in Europe. How
Mm,
people were getting together, and they were having a circle, and then they would putting an intention, and then they would dance. It's also a big part of the Romanian tradition,
mm.
from the time of Dacians, like thousands of years ago.
Oh, wow.
That kind of thing is portrayed even like on the like in Rome on the column of Trajan, that when he went into that campaign against the Dacians. So it's things that were never lost. And my grandfather was also a big dancer. He he was very educated, but he started pretty much, he was from the countryside, and this was part of the things that everybody was doing. And was the lead of this group called Kalushari, which was a very energetic dance done by the men, by the young men in the community. That was what they were calling it. They were chasing away the bad spirits.
Excellent.
And they were, so this was like done usually like in these times of change, like the seasonal change, like in the beginning of like summer or the spring or in the autumn. There were these moments when everybody was getting together, and they were kind of the spark of the party, you know, like they were just when they would go together, and then they would dance in this amazing dance that looks like they were defying gravity. They were jumping and doing this very intensely, like physical dance. They would pretty much, they would say that all the bad spirits would be dispelled. And what I see now through it was just really, because whenever we experience an emotion, that emotion is contagious. And those guys were really putting that emotion into the group, and from there, you know, there were those circle dances, we call them hora, that was they were done there. And yeah, lots of things I saw in those traditions were kind of coming back from my tradition. And so this is what determined, I said, okay, I want to do this training. And so in 2010, the end of 2010, I went to the first phase of that training in Mount Shasta, a beautiful place in California. And I had my first kind of like deep dive into that state of trance, and with the group that was training. And I did over a period of like a year another two modules, and so they were each time 10 days, 10 days, 10 days, like. And I became certified to like dancing freedom facilitator, which was like, again, I didn't need that certification to to start doing this, but it was something that it was a start for me. And that's what made me initially I started teaching classic there in California. And I was just again, it was the Sunday morning dance. People were calling it a dance church. So
nice.
And again, it was just inviting friends over, and we're just having a dance session. And then I got back into my music and into mixing and creating journeys.
Brilliant. So basically, what you could easily say is that dancing is in your DNA and in, you know, your cultural roots, and has come all the way through. So this is like another iteration of that coming out, you know, to enlighten culture in a different way.
Yes, it is. It's even I didn't really appreciate it when I was there, because it, like many things, you know, like you get from tradition, they tend to be over, like they are not really relevant for the modern times. That's what I thought, but we can make it relevant for the modern times. So if the traditional dances, and the traditional way of doing things were always related with things that were good for that time, like even the traditions from South America, and they all look at the eagle and the directions too, because these were the things that people would relate to in their daily world. Like, you know, they were invoking things that were bringing comfort, and things that they were inspiring for them. But for a person living in a city, you don't see every day a condor, you know, to be you know, amazed by, wow, its majesty, or to see a jaguar to be, you know, frightened and at the same time fascinated by its power, or to, you know, just consider the sunrise the only light. That, because that's, you know, when people were living just 150 years ago, it was all dark, and then the only light that you would see and would give you comfort into that darkness, it was the sunrise. So that's why people were always like kind of worshiping like the directions, the sunrise for giving us that comfort of light, the south for that heat of the day, the west, it was for the dark skies that were bringing the rain, and then the north, it was for facing the harshness of the winds, that's the cold winds from the north. um, and they were all associated with colors, and for instance, the Native Americans, they call the spiritual path in their tradition, it's called the red road, because north, it's associated with red. Red, it's that power of determination, that power of uh, self guidance and resilience in face of challenges, and they were defining as a well lived life, as a life that we take those challenges, we don't shy away, we just stay present, like the bison, that they stay and face that north wind against in the face. So all these, again, like they are not really relevant, or a person living in a city doesn't have that emotional connection with these kind of things, because oh, there is light, oh, we just flip the switch and the light is on. It's a water, we don't need to go towards the west and pray for the rain, because we just turn on the tap.
Mm.
And that really kind of solves the problem. So we don't have that same kind of visceral connection with those elements. And so for that reason, I felt, yeah, it should be done in a different way, in a way that we can relate to it, to our daily experiences of a person living in the city. And that's how the whole process of developing this kind of way of doing these dances kind of came up, and finding those elements that we can connect with, and that's something that, techniques that I took from qigong, from yoga, from different things, that different practices that I did for the last 30 years. What are the ways that our body reacts to? And because we are all different, none of us can do this one thing and have the same effect. We are all wired differently. So I just got a collection of things that people can use as tools, and choose whatever works for them.
Wow. Okay. So it does it sounds like it is possibly a release valve, and it could be a release valve for a lot of people if they happen to have a chance of experiencing ecstatic dance themselves. And yeah, that's fantastic. Now, you did end up moving to Australia, probably not long after that. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, in 2012. So during our time in California, we met lots of Aussies and Kiwis also. Like, yeah, so we just really had a good time with them, and they were like, "Oh, have you been to Australia?" No. Okay, it's like, and they started telling us stories and this, and so I said, okay, then we're gonna just apply to get our residency in Australia. So it kind of, and we applied. So since yeah, around 2010, and just got yeah, the application going, and it took a bit longer because it was there were a couple of changes in the laws, but anyway, we got the approval in 2012.
Yes.
And we were like, oh, okay, so yeah, let's just take our next step and go to Australia. It was not like just random. It was a bit also like we were feeling the atmosphere in the States was starting to change. There was a lot of, like, it was not as much polarization as nowadays, but that started to happen. It was still beautiful. It was like really, the cities were so peaceful compared to what they are now, from what my friends tell me. But we felt that there was some kind of something in the air was changing, and and that thing was also including probably social unrest and these things. And we said, this is not a place to, to have a family, or this to settle down to on the long term. And Australia seemed like much of sheltered kind of place to from all this craziness that was kind of starting to unfold.
Mm.
And yeah, sure enough, now we are so grateful for having, the making that decision, and for having the chance to actually come and live here, and in 2012. So
So you're
this
in
was,
Brisbane now,
yeah.
and did you start off in Brisbane, or did you come to another part of Australia first?
Well, we took like, because we wanted to take everything we had with us. I mean, the important things. We lived in the States for so many years.
Yes.
Um, we said, okay, what's the best way to get there? And we actually ended up coming with a cruise ship.
Oh,
And Yeah,
wow.
so it because the airplane, to pay for all that luggage or to pay for another container to be shipped to Australia, it was pretty expensive. And uh, we took a cruise ship that was a relocation cruise ship from San Francisco.
A relocation cruise ship. I've never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, it's so the cruise ships, they have a season, summer season in the northern hemisphere,
Yeah.
and when that thing is finished at the end of summer, they move to Australia to start the season here
Yes.
in Australia for the Australian summer. So we left. So those are usually very cheap because they take a long time to cross the Pacific, and
Mm.
not many people can. If you were working, like, we would not be able to take it. And they were, of course, most of them were retired people. Were probably like just about three couples that were our age that we got to hang out with,
Mm.
in 2000 something people on the ship. And that took us to Sydney, and it was like we got to Sydney, but most of the people that we knew were from like northern New South Wales and Brisbane, and this that we met when we were in California.
Yes.
So we just got a van, and we loaded with all our luggage, and we start driving north. And uh, we wanted to kind of find a place to kind of like where to settle. And for the first 6 months, we actually kind of drove and like traveled through Australia along the east coast, up and down. Like, first time we went all the way to far north Queensland into Cairns, um, because there was actually a festival that was happening. There were these organizers in the United States. They were organizing the Eclipse Festival. It was an annular eclipse in May 2012 in the Nevada desert, very close to where Burning Man is. And we went to that festival, and usually we were helping to set up. We were part of the team, and they were telling us, you know what? Actually, we have in November there is an eclipse festival that's happening in Australia.
Mm.
And I said, "Oh, what a coincidence! We are actually moving to Australia."
Yeah.
So we went to help them to set up that festival. It was an amazing experience. Yeah. So from there we started traveling down and went through all the coastal towns, and yeah, we ended up. Sorry, just a second.
That's right.
Yeah, we ended up here in Brisbane. Um, it was We realized it's also close to Byron Bay, where also we had a couple of friends, people that we knew, and we loved that area each time we went there. So I just started applying for jobs here while we're still living in the van. Was uh, and I just got my first job here in Brisbane, and yeah, so that's how we ended up settling up here.
And then in 2013, you had your first um, ecstatic dance event at Northey Street Market. So maybe just explain how that came about, and what was that like for you, and yeah, and what was your impression of the whole event overall?
Oh well, the reason, yeah, it was like we started in 2013. It was because there were other events here, but none of them were kind of fitting what I was looking for.
Mm.
So there are events that they consider themselves like conscious dance events, but they are. Um, really not self-guided events. They are events that like somebody tells you what to do, tells you how to move, um, doesn't really give you the span of time necessary to get into a state of trance. They kind of interrupt you all the time. So it was not what I experienced in California. It was something that, okay, for a while it was working, but because there was nothing else. And as I said, the reason we moved to California was because of dance. I said, if there is nothing else, we're going to just make one. And I just, for me, it was because I wanted to have a place where every week I could actually dance. And Northey Street was, I was going there to see friends, and there was this outdoor area in the back of the Northey Street where like there were sometimes shows and plays, things like that were happening. And because I knew people there, they said, "Oh, why you can just bring the speakers, and there is the cafe deck, and you could have a dance when after the market finishes." I said, "Well, great." I went. I got my first speakers, and with my computer, with the sets that I already started to develop since like I was in California. And we were offering these free dances for people whoever wanted to join us. I just like dancing, so I said, "Well, we are just free to join us." And the first to join us, sure enough, were the kids. The kids were the first ones to respond to it. And
Yeah,
in shortly, they were dragging their parents to come and dance with us. And
love that.
so it was such a great way to like, and every Sunday morning we're there. And that's how I met lots of people that I'm still friends with, one of them helped us to always to put the speakers up, and to set up. And yeah, so it was and slowly they were even allowing us to do these night events on full moon. We were getting somebody there to open up and get access to electricity and this, and be able to dance on the grass in the back there when there were full moons, and have full moon evenings. um, and of course, they were very small at that time. We started with 4 or 5 people coming, and initially there were, as I said, during the day there were like probably 2 or 3 kids.
Yeah, right.
And but gradually they grew up, and then like I think at one point, even during the day, we had about 20 something people, kids and parents, all dancing uh, on that cafe deck in North Street.
Nice. That would have been fun. So I've been to quite a lot of ecstatic dance events myself, and one of the things that I love about the events is when you are opening, you always have what I would say an off-the-cuff sort of long form explanation of what ecstatic dance is about, and what's going to happen in it, and the rules around it, if it like which are very flexible as well, and what to expect, and how it works. Now, wondering if you could actually go through that explanation that you go through when you're actually sitting in the circle there. I mean, when it starts off, we all gather, and we all sit in a circle, and
Mhm.
then usually start talking to introduce. You ask who's not been here before, and the people put their hands up, and then you go into an explanation about it. Can you go through that explanation, because that is like every single time you always come up with something which it embeds even more of an understanding of, for me, the body and its importance in reaching ecstasy as a way of release from stress.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm trying to kind of relay, yeah, as short as possible, kind of what's the essence of ecstatic dance. And if I would be to define it like dance, it's like a moving meditation. It's a way to get into a deep state of meditation using your body. And meditation, when you think of it, what is the prerequisite of meditation? The only thing that you need, it's actually to have a distraction-free place. So it's like you get a place where nobody can distract you, and take your attention from what is happening. And this is the reason, for instance, in an ecstatic dance, the only rule we have it's just don't bring distractions, and distractions meaning like starting talking, starting, pulling out, electronic devices, or anything that would pretty much create a disruption, like, and would actually distract people from that internal process. So in a meditation, just to keep your mind kind of focused and clear, people, they say, like, just focus on your breathing, right? That's the only prerequisite, the only thing that you do actively. You just focus on your breathing. What's in like Vipassana meditation, it's called the Anapana. And once you just connect with that breathing, and then whenever your thoughts are coming up, all the reactions that we kind of our body have, or thoughts, they kind of start to interrupt that focus process, and it gets distracted. Well, that distraction is usually like a reactivity, something that stands out, something that our mind needs to process, or our psyche needs to process. And the meditation says, just don't really pay attention to that, and just come back to the breathing. In other words, meditation gives us the ability not to get rid of those thoughts, because obviously we cannot really, they keep coming. But when those thoughts are coming, they get us more prepared to face them and not react. Like, it's like we just to be able to be at ease with all those like reactions, or all those things that kind of come up into when we are undistracted. And usually what it means for us, it's like really being comfortable with the uncomfortable things, because those are the things that kind of stop us from doing, to have a fulfilled life. Like, many times we have a bad experience, and that experience creates a fear, creates a hesitation in taking a pursuit that maybe before that we love to do. And this is like things like, if we want to have a relationship, and we had a breakup, and then that relationship leaves a mark into our psyche, and all of a sudden, each time when we get close to someone, that wound or that experience comes back, and creates this discomfort, and that discomfort makes us run away, makes us shy away from that situation. And the problem is not really that experience. Indeed, it's valid. It was, at that point, it was something that we needed to do, but in time, like, we just perpetuate that state of avoiding that situation, and that literally cuts ourselves, part of ourselves off, that we cannot enjoy anymore. And being able to deal with that discomfort, it's literally our way back into that part of ourselves. It instead of, coping with that discomfort by distracting ourselves, because this is what the we are kind of very poorly equipped to deal with discomfort. We always seek pleasure or things that feel good, and any distraction we try to, or any kind of discomfort, we try to face it with distraction. So whenever a discomfort kind of comes up, we go to pull out our phone, right? Or we go to the fridge, or we start smoking, or anything, like all these coping mechanism, or even diving into like work, becoming workaholic. It's all just for the wrong reasons, trying to distract ourselves from a moment of light void, or distraction, or discomfort that we experience. So meditation, if it gives us anything, is that ability to be at ease with those distractions and not influence our lives. And when you take the meditation to the next level, because obviously those things take a while, like if you experience like a Vipassana meditation, those discomfort feelings, they take sometimes days to come up. Into a meditation, for a reason, it's taking 10 days, because it needs time. And in our modern world, I don't know how many people can take 10 days off just to sit and meditate. It's again, I did that when I was in California, because I was doing consulting, and it was giving me I had a flexible schedule, and I did quite a few of these Vipassana meditations. And it's amazing. It really gets you to places that you thought you forgot. Initially, in the first few days when you do anapana, it comes all the recent memories. They kind of come up and all the things that you experienced. But then you go back to times where you thought you, yeah, like just in childhood, and moments that you completely forgot into our conscious mind because you get in that depth. Well, with yoga, for instance, because those emotions, they sit into the body. Whenever we put our body into a stretch, into a pose, it stimulates those emotions to surface quicker. So like if you want to take a step to a notch higher, you don't involve just the mind and just sitting on a chair and meditate and wait for those things to eventually happen, but actually do something with your body. And whenever you start stretching and you experience a little bit of tension and this a bit of like, discomfort, that's where actually those emotions that are stuck into the body starts to surface, and it's a way to reach them quicker. And so that's why, like, for instance, if you take it like from to step one, yoga, because you just sit in a posture, will speed up the process. Well, if you want to make it even faster, to put it on an express lane, you also move the body, because when you initiate a movement and when the body moves, that's when really the energy starts to move into the body even quicker. Like you can reach those deeper spaces in a more expedite way. And that's why meditation, again, it's good, but like if you want to set it for a urban space where people don't have that time, I saw many times, because we do it for the last 10 years, in those 3 hours people go through a transformation similar to what they would go through 10 days of meditation, because we did not only did those retreats, but also we volunteered for many of these, because this is how so we actually got the chance to witness many people going through those 10 days of meditation, and how they would, like, they would come in like really all faded and like uninspired and disheartened. And then after those 10 days, because they go through this process, their face like is just shining, and they are really ready to take for the next challenge, and they are not afraid anymore of those little discomforts, because they through meditation they get to be more at ease with it. And the same way with the dance. After 3 hours, you see people in a totally different mood, in a totally different state. Again, it's not something like a one magic pill that fixes it all, but it's just a glimpse that if it's kept with consistent practice, it creates a real transformation in the people. And again, from there, everything else can open. But I'm kind of like staying just with that original transformation that happens within ourselves through these practices. And then people can really branch and do whatever they want with it, as long as they are in that state of mind where they think that something is possible.
So one thing I've noted in your opening comments for Ecstatic Dance quite several times is the scientific evidence that you found yourself, which actually supports everything that you've been doing and basically confirms all of that. Can you explain anything around that?
Well, scientifically, I think, there was a lot of scientific experimentation around meditation. So this is, again, like very well documented. And people were put in MRIs and they were measured and see how their emotional states, like in the level of reactivity that the body goes to, and the level of brain waves, like they proved that, when you meditate, you go into that deep state of brain waves, and like normally we are in that beta state where the mind is really active and jumping from one thing to another. Then they go through a alpha state, which is like light relaxation. It's like when you read a book or this, but then you can go to like a state of mind where it's like somewhere in between asleep and awake. That state is that state where a baby absorbs all that information. So in the first 7 years of life, we have this amazing, uncanny ability to absorb things and change our mind because of we are in that state where the brain, it's in that brain waves that all everything we absorb like a sponge, and the way we absorb it, it's uh, by getting exposed to whatever the environment it is, and then playing with that, like just not taking it seriously. So it's a state of, I would call it, many people they call it trance, I would call it a state of relaxed awareness. So where you don't take things very seriously. Again, if there is a emotion coming, you just acknowledge it and you just allow it to kind of like pass, and then you focus on your intention. And this is the thing that kind of I say, like, you cannot hit a target without seeing it. So intention, it's like the capital kind of importance in this process. Having to put an intention gets your mind also sometimes connected with what prevents you to get to that intention, and namely the fears or the hesitations that prevent us to take that first step. So meditate, like an intention setting that again we do at the beginning at the ecstatic dance, it's proven to stir kind of those emotions that keep us stuck, because every time whenever there is something we really want, it comes with that deep fear that, whoa, because it's important, it really frightened us. It really brings that kind of hesitation. We never get to be frightened by things that are mundane or like, but the things that are important, like having a relationship or being able to be engaged with what we love to do, like in terms of like career or this, they are always, those are the things that bring the deepest fears. And when we set an intention, again, it's like this process, it's similar to meditation. It brings to the surface those things that we keep putting them away in our daily lives with our distractions. And this is what I feel the ecstatic dance, it can bring. Our modern life has plenty of distractions, and that were not present just even 100 years ago. We had those times, like it was, everything was spaced out, and we had this natural time to meditate, like when we were just walking for kilometers to reach to a place. Our mind had processed and the body had the time to actually catch up and do all these things. Not anymore. It's like everything is in a rush. Everything is like between the notifications on the phone and like distractions from like TVs and like all kinds of advertisements, and literally put us into the space of not having that minimum time to allow those processes to happen. And when I wanted, for me, the ecstatic dance, it's like that space that if you allocate in every week, you give it the chance to catch up. Because we are not talking, we are not getting distracted. And because of this expedited way that the music can bring emotions up, uh, it can help to bring the body into a state of balance in a busy society like that we live now.
Understood. Okay, so I had some other questions around your ecstatic dance sessions, because sometimes you actually include cacao as a part of your sessions. Can you want to tell us about that and why?
Yeah, I started that first, probably like about 8 years ago, and we just realized how it can help in a combination with the dance. At that time, there were not many cacao dances in the world. There were probably like, I don't know, just a couple of people they were doing in South America, but not really combined with dance. And cacao, by itself, it's a very mild medicine. It doesn't put you in a state of like, whoa, I have to really be present. Like many of the psychedelics or traditional medicines, they bring you into that state of awareness and very, very kind of strong. So you cannot really avoid it. It really pretty much puts you into a state of meditation, as I said, like, and forces you kind of like face different things that come up from the psyche. uh, Cacao is not the same. Cacao is very gentle. It's kind of, it just opens up your senses into a space of gentle awareness. So it physiologically, what happens on the physiological level, because of the combination of magnesium and phenethylamine, and these are like substances that dilate all your capillaries, like in the, not only in your limbs but in your heart, in your brain, and dilation of those capillaries bring with them a heightened awareness. So we start to feel more, be more aware of what's going on, because it creates a shift. It's like always, the body gets used to feeling certain things, and because we numb them down, we don't feel them anymore. So this knob of like that cacao turns by just enhancing a bit those abilities, our abilities to feel, creates this momentarily shift that allows us to notice things that are happening within our body, like stuck emotion, places where we feel tight, and that it's exactly what the dance as a moving meditation works with, helping bringing those things to the surface, and then using the movement to give voice to an emotion, to express it, either shake it off or really bring it to life, bring it life into your nervous system. So again, bringing the cacao in, you have to kind of meet it in the middle. It's not just, oh, I'm going to drink cacao and let's see what happens. And really nothing happens if you don't have the intention and the attention that because you have to really put that on. But that attention is much easier to focus when you drink cacao, because, as I said, it's like turns things a notch higher. And all of a sudden you notice there is something different, and that's the beginning. But then once you stay present with that and you don't get distracted, because, as I said, it's very easy to, and we have this habitual distraction behavior. If we stay present with it, with those emotions, that's when the things tend to shift on the long term. And all of a sudden we realize that, oh yeah, that thought of, or that fear, it's still there, but it's just like a annoying thing that kind of, it's in the background. It's not anymore dictating what I'm doing.
Sounds like it adds to the benefits for sure. So one other question I wanted to ask you was, so you've been running this now for 10 years, close to 10 years, and has it actually spawned anyone creating other branches of ecstatic dance anywhere in the world?
Yes, there are people that started doing, now there is someone that started doing things like this in Sanford for families. There are a couple of other people that when we were in Byron, they started doing it there. So they are, and I'm really happy to see that kind of thing happening. I've seen another one also coming up in Cairns. So literally there are, like, in the last 10 years, it multiplied exponentially. This phenomenon, it's I think even more present in Europe, because we went back to Europe before COVID every 2 years, and even like every year, we, like, for the last, like, 2018, 2019, and we actually discovered, I had the surprise to discover that there was actually even an ecstatic dance across the park where I was playing when I was a kid. So,
oh wow.
yeah, so and then I connected with that local community, and we went actually to a couple of cities in Romania, and we facilitated a couple of events, and it was
cool.
such a discovery, such an amazing discovery to see that it takes off everywhere. And it was quite an amazing way to see, like, all the places where we used to live, like Chicago, there was no such thing. Now there are thriving events in Chicago, ecstatic dance, and I keep in touch with some of these DJs, and we just exchange, ideas and things that what's happening. And yeah, it became, the last 10 years, it became like definitely a big phenomenon. My first ecstatic dances that I experienced were in California. As I said, in San Francisco, it was the biggest event in the world at the time. It was about 300 people dancing in a big
Whoa.
suites ballroom, like in Oakland, California,
Mm.
and it was really amazing. And I had actually the chance to invite that DJ that founded that dance here in Brisbane, and he played when we had a Cacao ceremony in the Princess Theatre. But this was already
I remember that
four
one.
years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember that one. That was good.
yeah. So it was, and I, whenever we had a chance, I'm inviting musicians and people that are involved in this movement to. And lately, it was not possible much because of COVID, but we had musicians coming to from the States, people that we met there. That I'm playing their music usually in the dance, and it's such a gift to have them live here.
Yeah, exciting.
Yeah, so
Mm.
and I'm looking forward again now because the travel it's open up again to have again those musicians coming and for the community, international community to uh, pretty much connect more.
Mm. Have you ever thought of the idea of teaching facilitator training for ecstatic dance at all?
Uh, yeah, it will take a lot of time and that I don't have now pretty much.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, with having a baby and this, it's like the life will be a bit different for the next few years. But
Yes.
it, I think, yeah, it's something that we kind of like dedicated. I committed the time for have to have a once a week event because I feel that that's where the results are when there is consistency. Like if I go to the gym one time and then I go again in 2 weeks, the only things I'm gonna get is gonna be getting sore, not get strong. So the same thing
Yes.
with these practices. They need to be reinforced, and that's when the real progress happens with that consistency. So I already like kind of like even uh, the time when we're busy, I made sure that I have time to do this at least once a week. And again, it's my practice, and just give it the chance to for whoever needs that week to be there for them, to be
Mm.
available whenever they need, not when I decide that it's all once in a blue moon or like every 2 weeks or this.
Mm. So keeping a regular pattern helps people, definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm. So where do you currently hold your events now?
And now we are lucky to have a big hall in Ashgrove that has plenty of parking around because we used to be in West End, and the parking became a problem because there were not many. But now we have a hall in Ashgrove that has a lot of parking around and also has a lot of nature around. And this is like kind of another thing that really makes the reason we started at Northey Street is because it has this it's kind of an oasis in the middle of the city. It
Mm.
really puts you into a different mindset just by being there. And this place in Ashgrove, it has that kind of feeling when you look on the window and you see just trees, and it's like just uh, football field, but it's empty usually, and that kind of makes people bring them into a different state of mind just by being there.
Mm. Excellent, excellent. Now, where can people find you and your events? Can you tell me about your website, things like that?
Yeah, so any like if you Google Ecstatic Dance Brisbane, uh, uh, you can find us on from beginning. I think we started on Meetup, then on Facebook. There are groups and the group and the page. Also, we have the ecstaticdance.com.au website. So because we were the first one to do this in Australia, so I have the original ecstaticdance.com.au, and that's where just even links to music and schedule ahead with a few months ahead to see where if you don't have necessary time right now to be able to see when the events are happening in the future.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so I'll include all those links at the bottom of this show. Adrian, thank you so much for coming on Supernormalized and talking to us about ecstatic dance and its benefits. I really appreciate your time. And yeah, I look forward to talking to you more so in the future as time goes on. Of course, I love catching up with you anyway. So
Yeah,
And yeah, it's been fun talking. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for doing this. It's really an honor for to be here.
Excellent, excellent. All right. Okay, well, I'll end the show now. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thanks.